much more efficient. But thank you for that. Anybody else got something on that?
You know, George brings up a lot of time too. This kind of goes along with this. If I get this across right, you know, you mentioned a while ago that we all want to do things so our kids won't have it as hard as what we had it. You know, we might know a little bit more than they know, so we want to try to learn them, you know, so they won't have it as hard as what we had it. And a lot of times, we can do things and get in God's way. You know, because we'll do things to help the child or help the young person. Where if you maybe stay out the way a little bit, let God handle it, the child might learn a lot more. You know?
That's a good point. Because all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And we don't know what God's preparing that child to do. And I know a lot of times we'll say, well, Lord, help this generation that's coming up after us. Well, he helped the one before us. You know, yeah. No, sir, you go ahead.
We can jump in there and fix it, and God might not want us to fix it.
Yeah, he may be teaching them something through that.
Well, it's like what you just said. By doing, you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't give them the opportunity to learn because we do it for them.
We jump and do it for them.
Yep.
You know,
And the intentions are good. Intentions are great. It's like Ken said, well-intentioned dragons. Yeah.
you take a little kid, real boy comes to church that destiny, grow his girlfriend's little boy. He don't speak real good. And the reason he don't is he goes, and everybody jumps up and gets what he wants. Well, they quit that over the last few months, and guess what? He's talking now.
Yeah. He's learning to say the.
You know, but he didn't have to before.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jim's trying to say. Sometimes we jump too quick. We don't let them do on their own, because that's how we learn.
Yep.
Is by doing.
We sure do.
And by seeing what our fathers, mothers also do, but we got to give them a chance to do it.
Yep.
And we're really robbing God out of what he wants to do, you know.
Yeah, it's true, because he's got a plan for them. And we need to allow that plan to go. We just need to.
Catch them when they fall, but we didn't let them go ahead and fall.
Yep. They got to fly, don't they?
That's right.
Yep.
And that's tough as a parent or a grandparent, but you don't want to see that. That's hard.
It is. You don't want your kids to suffer.
Especially as young as Amber is, you don't want to see that baby fall.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you don't want to see it, but at the same time, when it gets 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, then it knows what falling is all about. But I can get up and go again.
Hey, that's right. And that's another example we need to set as parents too. We have to have authenticity that we're not perfect. Yeah, we serve a living God who is perfect, but we're not. And so I think too our kids need to see that we get grace when we fall and that we don't stay down. We do get up and keep going and ask forgiveness and go on. And that's another thing. Terry and I were talking about hypocrisy the other day and what it meant to be a hypocrite, you know. And while there's a lot of hypocrites in the church, there's a lot of people like him who used to live one way and now they don't live that way anymore, and you're a new man. And that's important for people to see. And I don't mean to single you out, but I've had a lot of people say, Terry Badger goes to your church, don't he? And I said, yeah. I said, man, he's a lot different than he used to be. I said, yeah, I baptized him last year. I'm thankful to have been a part of that, you know. And so, you know, you've touched a lot of people by allowing God to change you. And so that's that example we're talking about. You know, people see that. They see the difference. Yeah. You found out God had the right plan? Yeah. But it's hard to turn it over because you love your kids. Yeah, pick your battles. Yeah, you're right. We've talked about that. You know, some things even with our daughter, we've said that. You know, some things, yeah, we're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna save the conflict for something that really matters. Does it really matter if she wears orange socks with red shorts? It might to some of you ladies. To me, I don't even notice.
This participation trophy thing that they give kids, I think that's wrong. Every kid's not made to be a ball player. Every kid's not made to be a dancer. And you shouldn't tell them you're good at it, here's your trophy.
Yeah.
If they're not good at it, they need to be told this ain't your thing. That don't mean they can't go be a dancer to participate and have fun, but they shouldn't be getting a trophy saying, hey, you done wonderful, here's your trophy.
Right.
The ones that does good at it ought to get that trophy, just like you get A's and B's and C's in school. You know,
They have to measure up to the standard.
because when they get older, then they don't get that trophy no more. You read in the paper, they went and killed themselves.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to handle nothing. You wasn't good enough. You couldn't sing, you couldn't dance, you couldn't play ball, you couldn't, whatever it might be. I think we need to teach our kids that everything they do, they're not top of the line with.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah, because everybody's got different gifts. You might not be good at this, but you're good at this.
And you ain't gonna find it if you think you're good just because everyone's telling you.
That's right. I mean, I'd love to be able to play the guitar like Brent Tate, but I can't. I can't. I don't. That's not my gift. You know, that boy's blessed with the gift of playing guitar, and I'm a little bit jealous of it. But still, yet, I don't covet it. I'm glad you got it. But you know, I realize that. So you're right. We have to know what our gift is and be able to recognize that. And God's created us all with something. We've all got something that somebody else doesn't have. So, oh, that's good. Thank y'all for the participation.
A lot of times what he said about everybody's good at everything, if that don't hurt kids spiritually.
Well, that's why I say that, because there has to be a standard. When he said that, say you have to have a standard, because at some point spiritually, you've got to choose. You know, once the age of accountability is reached, then we have to decide where we are on that standard.
They don't know how to, figure that out.
Right, because
They always told you good.
they've always measured up. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
And that don't mean we don't pat them on the back, say, it's great that you tried, great that you participated in it, but that ain't your thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay to tell them that, I think.
Well, you know, if that's the thing, like you take an NFL player, anybody can learn to play football. Anybody can play football. Everybody ain't going to be 315 pounds and move with the agility of a cat. You just ain't going to do it. You know, that is a gift, and that you're right. We need to teach kids that.
I've heard my mama say when I was a little boy one time, my sisters always babied me, and they still do. And
Janice said, amen.
They'd get kind of upset when I was crying, and the mama said, it won't hurt him cry, it'll build his lungs up. So it's good out of crying. I mean, things
Yeah.
like that, things is okay.
Yeah.
Not to be number one in everything.
It is. Like my brother used to take me off in the woods and leave me. He said it's made me tough. Made me into the man I am today. Ain't that what you said? It ain't bad for us to cry. That's right. It's funny to the older brothers.
That's like my daughter. She can sing, and she can sing in church, and she's 2. And she said, Mom, you know how to sing. I said, well, you know I can't sing. She said, oh, yeah, you can. She said, everybody can sing, it just might not be good.
God requires a joyful noise. That's right. He likes to hear us sing. All right, we'll move on. The next 3 verses says, bondservants, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart, as to Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. Now, I don't know anybody that's ever been a slave, and nobody in here is a slave, but this can apply to our work. We need to be obedient to those who are our masters, which would be our bosses, and with fear and trembling. This basically means that we respect that authority, and this in sincerity of heart as to Christ means that we work at our jobs or whatever tasks we've been assigned as working for the Lord. And then in verse 6, not with eye service as men pleasers. In other words, don't just work when they're looking at you. Work when they ain't looking at you. And I'm gonna brag on my wife for just a minute. In January 2020, she started working from home as a guinea pig project that Caramont did. She was the very first one, as far as I know, in the entire hospital, Caramont, that went home to work. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm home some days when she's working, and she never leaves that room. She gets up, she goes in there, and she is nose to the grindstone. And I've told her before how much I respect her work ethics, because a lot of people, if they was working at home, they wouldn't be working. They'd be running around doing everything else. But I can honestly say she works probably harder there because she ain't got as many distractions as she would in the office. And that's exactly what this is talking about. Not with eye service as men's pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. So it's God's will that we work hard and respect our earthly authorities. And then verse 7 says, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to men. In other words, don't just do it because you know you're supposed to. Do it with the right attitude. Now that's key, because there again, it's kind of back to what we talked about obeying our parents. We can obey out of fear or obey out of what am I going to get out of it, but we're really supposed to do it from a proper heart. And that regenerated heart can only come through a relationship with Jesus. And then verse 8 says, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. In other words, what you reap what you sow is probably an easy way to say that. And so Paul's telling us here that we need to do our best on our jobs and at work and doing things, whether we're slave or free, we should do our best at doing a good job. And verse 9 is how to treat subordinates and you masters or bosses. I think this could go to anybody that's in any kind of authority role. Do the same things to them, giving up threatening. In other words, don't threaten them, don't make them afraid, knowing that your own master also is in heaven and there's no partiality with him. In other words, don't show partiality, because God doesn't show partiality to us. He does it. Now, he might give us different jobs. We've all got different jobs, but he treats us all evenly. Like Roy. Roy's got guys that work for him, and I'm sure some of them are better at certain things than others. And you've recognized their talents, and you've put them on jobs where they excel at, because that makes everything better. But I would imagine you treat them all the same. Well, he rolled his eyes, maybe, you know. Well, you should. He will tomorrow anyway, yeah. Anybody got anything they want to add to that before we get into the armor of God? No? All right, we'll move on to the whole armor of God. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. That's pretty simple. Be strong in the Lord and his might, not ours. We're weak in ourselves. We got to have his strength. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Now, I just preached on this a few weeks ago, so it might still be fresh in some of you's mind. But the wiles, when we say wiles, that just means schemes, you know. And if you're scheming against somebody, then that's a bad intent, ill intent is what I'm trying to say. And so we need to watch out, because we know Satan's against us. He is scheming against us. One thing about Satan, though, sometimes we give him too much credit. We oftentimes, and I think in our human minds, we think of Satan as the exact opposite of God. Well, I don't know if that's the right way to say it. We think of him as God's counterpart, his evil counterpart. That couldn't be further from the truth. Satan really has no power except what God's allowed him to do. Here's what Satan's good at. He's smarter than us. He can trick us. He can dangle a carrot in front of our nose. He can use other people and influence them to influence us. He can make us start trusting our feelings and not trust our faith. That's a biggie right there for most people. well, I just feel this way or I feel this way. And feelings are real. I'm not in any way dismissing feelings. They're very powerful. But if we walk by faith and not by sight, we have to go by what we know and not what we feel. Because feelings are circumstantial. They can change like that. And so that's one thing that Satan's really good at, is tricking us. And so we need to realize that one of his biggest tools is deceit. One of his biggest tools is discouragement. We talked about that a little last night, didn't we, Joyce? One of his biggest tools is also getting you to drop your standards and compromise. Because if he can get a toehold in, then it is little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit. I've never seen an alcoholic that became an alcoholic from one drink. It don't happen. It starts small and it snowballs. And before you know it, it's bigger than you and taking you over. And that's how sin is, and that's how he works. Verse 12 says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. In other words, we can't grab him and put him in an arm bar and hold him down as the law gets here. It's nobody that we can put our hands on. But against principalities, powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Now, when I read that, some words jump out at me. Principalities, powers, rulers, spiritual hosts, heavenly places, all that denotes strength. So this is a strong spiritual warfare. It's not physical. Doesn't matter. One of the littlest little ladies, Lily Val, she wasn't very strong physically, but she had a lot of faith. She was strong spiritually. And that's what Paul's talking about here. We need our spiritual strength up. And here again in verse 13, he says, therefore, because you're fighting against these strong things, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Now let's look back at verse 11. Put on the whole armor of God. So that's a conscious choice. We have to decide whether or not to put it on. We don't have to put it on. He's telling us that. Put on the whole armor. We don't have to put it all on. We can put some of it on. Verse 13, he repeats, therefore take up or put on the whole armor of God. He tells us again to make that decision to take up that whole armor of God, that we may be able to withstand in the evil day. Every day is an evil day. There's something comes at us every single day, whether it's somebody pulling out in front of you going down the road, whether it's somebody smart-mouthing you that you don't like. Well, it's something all the time. Everybody had something aggravate them today, I guarantee you. Somebody got aggravated by something today. And maybe it was your dog chewed up something. That happens to us a lot. But, what was that?
George didn't cook supper.
Or maybe your wife didn't cook supper. No. Well, my wife picked me up and took me to Dino's. So, yeah, I'm doing something right. So, stand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Y'all better behave back here. So, Paul tells us in verse 14, and I'm gonna try to get through this. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Stand, therefore, having girded your waist with truth. Now, what's the truth? The truth is Jesus, the gospel. So, we have to know that. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life in John 14:6. And I'm going to go through this right quick, but think about this belt. This Roman soldier had this belt. Now, Paul's in prison when he's writing this. I forgot to refresh y'all's memory on that. He wrote this from a prison cell, and he was under constant guard. So he saw these Roman soldiers. Now, these soldiers wore these belts, and these belts wasn't just to hold up their loincloths or